Barney Saunders. Due to the international nature of the Church of Scientology, how does the Church maintain control over the non-American sections? Surely they can maintain less control over these sections. Does this translate into a situation where the authoritarian control and human rights abuses are less severe for those Scientologists who are based outside of the US? Alright, well, I did a video called Scientology's Organizational Madness where I sort of laid out the entire structure and command channels of Scientology according to how it was supposed to be set up under L. Ron Hubbard's final directions and workouts in the 1980s, and then how David Miscavige has usurped control over the entire structure and runs it as a dictator. That structure applies to all of Scientology internationally. It's not just a US-based thing, and I'm taking this question up because I want to talk about the role of the Sea Org, but I do find it kind of an interesting question because I don't know why anyone would think that Scientology runs things outside of the US any differently than it runs it inside the US. It's really the same operating pattern and principles and guidelines and the same L. Ron Hubbard policies, including all of the policies that he wrote that are not particularly out in the public sector for everybody to download and read about how to manage organizations and how to run Scientology, like really the nuts and bolts of how it gets run, you know. Anyway, it is the same. And the human rights abuses that occur within Scientology occur universally in all parts of the world. In fact, Australia has been a place where some really nasty stuff has happened and where people have been relegated who weren't wanted in the United States or weren't wanted in David Miscavige's vicinity or in any possibility of them ever again coming within David Miscavige's vicinity. So you know, you have that going on there. Of course, Europe has seen some, I mean, over the years, when I heard war stories when I was in the Sea Org about all kinds of nonsense. There was a guy, for example, who was on a project or what's called a Sea Org mission in Europe. He was an American, and he told me about how they didn't have money for food. And he was staying, I guess, in some hostel or something where there was very, very little amount needed in order to have a bed to sleep in. He wasn't, obviously, he was, you know, external to a Sea Org base. He wasn't in Copenhagen or in St. Hill. He was off in some European org. And so he was put up at a hostel, and he was having to give blood almost every day and sell it, like, because apparently you get money at that time. This was in the 80s, in order to have money to eat, because the Sea Org wasn't sending him any money. So, yeah, that kind of stuff happens, and happened, and it happens all over the place. The amount of, well, let me say this about the Sea Org as far as how this all works. David Miscavige controls Scientology through the Sea Organization. That's S-E-A, as in the Ocean Organization. And if you don't know what the Sea Organization is, Google it. There's lots of information out there, and I've talked about it at length. But including in that Organizational Madness video. But the Sea Organization is sort of, like I said, it's the glue that holds all of Scientology together. And it's the core group of a couple thousand people who David Miscavige runs as the captain of the Sea Org. He is the flag officer or you know, the highest ranking officer of the Sea Org. They have a whole ranks and ratings system, and he's the only one who's actually got the rank of captain. So everybody in the Sea Org answers to David Miscavige, ultimately. There's chains of command, of course, you know, layers between him and everyone else, but ultimately, if he comes into an area and he starts giving out orders, no one is going to even dream of disobeying or talking back or saying, yeah, I don't think so, or anything like that. So the Sea Org are the ones who manage all of Scientology. Every single church of Scientology all over the world is managed, controlled by the Sea Organization. The management units exist at each continental level. And then there's an international body. Now, Miscavige has done away with a whole bunch of people at the international level, but he hasn't done away with everybody. There's still a structure of some kind there, especially as his orders filter down to middle upper middle management, lower middle management, which is where I worked, and then down to the Scientology organizations, or churches as they call them. So without the Sea Org, none of this would really work. And this non-legal entity, Jeffrey Augustine has discussed the corporate, or rather lack of corporate status or any legal status that the Sea Org has at the Scientology Money Project website, that blog that he's put together. So you should also check that out. But without that structure in place, without all those people, yes sir, no sir to David Miscavige, this whole thing would kind of legally kind of fall apart, and practically it would fall apart, because the Sea Org are the 24/7 guys who are just working flat out to keep Scientology working. So they follow those direct orders. Miscavige filters a lot of his orders through others, so it looks like the orders are coming from other people. He sends his orders out, go down not just verbally from his mouth, but in writing through issues that he writes, or telexes, basically emails that he sends to various people if he wants to. He can speak directly to people. I, for example, had a series of dispatch communications with him when I was in lower management. And that was quite the thing. I mean, if you're having a direct communication with him, people are paying attention. They want to know what he says, right? It's very special to get a dispatch right from David Miscavige. It doesn't happen often. But when you're a commanding officer of one of these organizations, whether you're the commanding officer of the Australia Advanced Organization or the management unit down there, or you're in Copenhagen, or you're in UK, or you're in America, it's the same line. And it follows the same structure. So there is no difference. And it's not like they pay a lot of attention to local laws or customs, because as far as Scientology is concerned, they are remaking civilization as they want it to look. And so they pay the minimal amount of attention necessary to local laws and customs, and especially if those laws are going to get in their way. So that's how Scientology is run. I could give a lot more detail about different aspects of this, but I just kind of wanted to make the point about the Sea Org being the glue that holds everything together, and also provides a uniformity of structure and control over all of the churches. So that's how that works.